As EU member states begin to relax the COVID-19 restrictions, we now need to start preparing for life after coronavirus. The enormous human, social, and economic sacrifices that the European people had to endure due to the coronavirus will inevitably affect the ways in which we shall proceed. We need to, in other words, take charge of the post-coronavirus Europe. This, however, will not be easy. As the latest International Monetary Fund report shows, the coronavirus crisis has triggered the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. There's a reason why some of the EU leaders, like the French President Emmanuel Macron, talk about the ultimate unraveling of the European Union in case the member states do not start showing so-called financial solidarity towards each other. To make all this more clear, let's look at IMF's projections. The southern European countries are suffering particularly badly from the coronavirus effects on their economy. IMF calculations show that countries like Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Spain will see their annual GDP shrink by around 8 to 9% in 2020. In addition, the coronavirus government support programs in these countries have already dramatically increased their debt ratios. If, for example, the debt ratios become too high, southern European countries could potentially fall into sovereign debt crisis. In other words, some of these countries could default on their public debt, which could then trigger another euro crisis. Not a pretty picture, is it? Well, what is the European Union actually doing to assuage the economic repercussions of the coronavirus crisis? After a series of heated negotiations, the Eurogroup was able to mobilize 540 billion euros to combat this crisis. Well, let's see what does that number actually entail. 240 billion euros will be available from the European Stability Mechanism. Another 200 billion euros will be available as loans to companies from the European Investment Bank. And finally, the remaining 100 billion euros will be available in loans through the EU's SURE instrument, which was created specifically for the coronavirus situation. The problem is, however, that most of the 540 billion euros mobilized will be accessible only as loans. That is, the withdrawals will come with conditions. Obviously, this will not be very helpful to countries that already have very high debt ratios. This is the reason why Southern European states were consistently pushing for corona bonds or debt mutualization. Well, what are the so-called corona bonds? Corona bonds are joint debt issued to member states of the EU. This is essentially a form of mutualized debt, which would be taken collectively by all member states of the European Union. By way of corona bonds, the economic burden of the coronavirus would be more equally distributed throughout the EU. However, the idea of debt mutualization is opposed by the Frugal Four, that is, Austria, Denmark, Sweden, and the Netherlands. The leaders of these countries claim that the northern part of the EU should not pay for southern Europe's economic problems. That is to say, the Frugal Four maintains that all EU countries should be responsible for their own debt. Corona bonds are not the only interesting proposal currently floating around. However, corona bonds are a good representation of our current predicament. Namely, without some degree of debt sharing, the coronavirus could further aggravate the southern-northern economic divide within the EU. This is precisely the reason why Emmanuel Macron is talking about the ultimate unraveling of the European Union. If wealthier countries don't start showing financial solidarity to countries that are worse off, we may be in deep trouble. There's really no other way to deal with the post-coronavirus economic troubles. There's the European United Way or the highway.